Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Hello, this is No, and I believe that if you take cranberries and stew them like applesauce, they taste much more like prunes than rhubarb does. Welcome to the After Effects Kickstart podcast.
Today on our third podcast interview, we are privileged to chat with an extremely smart, extremely nice young man named Jaedoo Lee. Jaedoo came on my radar about a year ago as he was graduating from SVA, which is the School of Visual Arts in New York City, and it's a great school. And, suddenly, a bunch of his student work started popping up on Motionographer and on Wine After Coffee. And, it's not completely unheard of that a student gets into those places, but it's pretty rare and a kind of a special thing when it happens. So it always catches my eye as a teacher. And Jaedoo was actually the very first person that I thought of when I decided to do this interview series. We've kind of become friends on Facebook in the years since he graduated, and I knew that he had first scored an internship at Buck, which I'm pretty sure that you must have heard of at this point, but if you haven't, they're definitely one of the very top motion studios in the country, if not the top. And then after his internship, they asked him to take a full-time job there. To me, he seemed like a rising star on the way up. And, I imagined that his life was perfect or something, like amazing and full of animation joy. And, he was just learning a ton and creating awesome special keyframes that the rest of us hadn't heard of or something. But, without giving too much away, that's not at all what it felt like for him. Jaedoo is a really humble guy and is obviously very dedicated to his craft. I think you should definitely watch some of his work on Vimeo before listening to this so you can see how good he is. Because to hear him talk about himself, you'd think his work was really just so-so. I apologize in advance for his audio. He was on a cell phone on the streets of New York, so there's definitely a little bit of noise behind him. But I think you'll get a lot out of listening to him, so I don't think it matters at all. Let's jump in and hear his story. Hey Jaedoo, thanks for being here. Really excited to chat with you today. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing really good, man. So I know we've got a lot of eager students here who are just learning After Effects, and they are, I'm sure, very eager to hear who you are and where you work and how long you've been animating. So can we start off with that?
My name is Jaedoo Lee. I work at Buck as a designer animator, and I've been professionally animating and designing for exactly a year now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. 1 year. You went through SVA, is that right?
Yeah, I went to SVA.
When did you realize that you wanted to work in motion design and animation?
I was actually an advertising major up till sophomore year, and I wanted to work at an ad agency, and I actually never wanted to learn motion. And all my friends were like, you should try it out. And I started taking a motion class junior year, and it was really fun for me, I guess. So I kind of ditched advertising altogether. I didn't really go to advertising class, and I just worked on my motion stuff. And that's, I guess, how I got more interested.
So you were thinking of becoming like an art director or ultimately a creative director or something like that?
Yeah.
Right on. That's really funny. That's great that you kind of got talked into it.
Yeah.
That's probably a little bit different from many other people, I think. Let me ask you, how did you learn After Effects? And I assume it was when you were at school, but if you could tell us a little bit more specifically, how you learned it and what that process was like for you.
I took an intro to motion graphics class junior year, and honestly, I kind of struggled with After Effects because of the interface, and it was something I was really unfamiliar with. And I started getting really interested in cell animation, and I bought all these books. I think one of them was the Animator Survival Kit book. Mm-hmm. And I guess understanding the fundamentals of animation, even if it's frame by frame, hand drawn, I was really appealed to how differently you could make things move. And then I guess I took that knowledge and kind of brought it back over to After Effects. And then I realized that there was a bit of a learning curve for After Effects, and once I started knowing how and what I wanted to move, I guess I kind of figured things out a bit easier than I had like in the beginning.
So I'm just really curious because our students are learning After Effects right now, and they're just a few weeks into it. But you said that it was difficult for you to look at the interface and kind of to understand the interface. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you remember specifically like what about it was challenging to you?
I guess like the whole idea of having keyframes and having things like set in time, because Photoshop and Illustrator aren't meant for that, and that was all I had used before. And the whole idea of having keyframes and different effects, and really hard for me to understand at first. Sure,
that makes sense. Did you have any like big aha moment where you feel like you really figured something out about it?
I'd have to say it was when I was getting really interested in cell animation, and I realized that I could have been doing a lot of this in After Effects if I knew what I was doing. And I guess that's when I realized I had been wasting a lot of time, and I guess, yeah, that was like my aha moment. Kind of brought me back to After Effects, and I started enjoying animating more.
Jaedoo, this is Joey. I have a question for you, my man. So I am afraid of cell animation. And you mentioned that you kind of started with cell animation, and that makes sense to me because on a technical level, it's actually a simpler process. You just draw what you want on each frame when you want. But you mentioned that you took some of that knowledge back into After Effects. And when I look at your work, the work that's on your site, quite honestly, a lot of times it's hard for me to tell what was cell animated and what you did in After Effects. So I'm curious, what are the lessons that you learned working traditionally that you've brought into After Effects?
Well, I guess the whole reasoning I had in my work was to make sure that you couldn't really tell how something was animated. I think because I added a lot of turbulent displays and all that stuff in my After Effects animations to kind of give it a hand-drawn look, and vice versa with cell animation. I made it as clean as I could to make it look like it was animated in After Effects. I feel like ultimately you're just trying to show what is in your head, and I feel like a lot of times a lot of people lean towards a certain style too much, and I kind of wanted to get rid of that in my work.
That makes sense. There's also, there's a lot of, when you're animating traditionally, I think you're forced to be really, really aware of things like timing and spacing. And in After Effects, it's easy to kind of lose sight of that stuff and just get caught up in the fact that, oh, here's a keyframe and here's another keyframe, and now the computer's going to do the rest of the work for me. Have you noticed other animators that didn't have that background in cell animation being a little maybe lazier with like timing and spacing than a cell animator would?
Not really.
It's because you work at Buck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You work with good animators all day.
No one's lazy there.
Kind of hard to like hold up and keep doing work here because it's a tough crowd to compete against.
I can
Well,
imagine.
internally, I guess I wouldn't be competing against them, but just like personally, like I want to do the same level of work, I guess, but it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, it's a tough transition into learning After Effects and also I guess into working professionally at a place like Buck. I can't even imagine myself, but for our students, is there something that you think from your point of view that you think that they should really focus on or keep in mind while they're learning After Effects?
Well, I went to school with a design background. I was a design major, and I noticed that a lot of students were too focused on animation skills. And I think a key part of having like good motion work is having good design. And I think that's something a lot of students lose sight of because they're kind of busy finding cool effects. Yeah, I probably just to keep design in mind and keep that the main focus.
That's great advice. I mean, Joey and I talk about that all the time, that design is kind of the most important thing, and that, animation can't save design, but design can save animation, as it were.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but even from a technical animation point of view, is there anything other than design that you think, I don't know, that you wish you had focused on more when you were in school or anything like that?
I'd say try to be as smart as you can about things. Because there are a lot of people who do things the hard way, and you end up wasting a lot of time. And a lot of kids in school say that motion takes forever, you need to stay up all these nights. I feel like if you know your way around, and I guess they aren't shortcuts, but if you're smart about things, you don't have to be staying up all night, which is what I find a lot of students are doing.
Right. They're just not smart about how they plan their time or how they plan their projects or whatever. Yeah, definitely. I see that a lot too as a teacher. Well, that's great. That's awesome advice for students, I think, both of those things. So let's talk a little bit about getting into the industry. And will you tell us the story about how you got your current job at Buck and how that all happened?
So at SVA, there was a motion portfolio teacher, Daniel Offinger. He's a creative director at Buck. I didn't take his class, but near the end of the year, he asked if I was interested in an internship. So I said yes, and I guess that's how I started working at Buck.
Sure, I've heard of Daniel Offinger. I wasn't never sure how to pronounce his name, if it's Offinger or Offinger, but...
Yeah. Everybody does it a bit different.
Right. So would you say that he played a kind of mentorship role for you in getting you into Buck?
Yeah, definitely. And even after I started working, he played a big part in helping me adjust in how things are running and how things are organized on the server and just the workflow, I guess.
Right. I'm sure that's a lot to go from being a student, mostly doing your own projects, to then jumping into these big teams of people, sometimes all over the world, I would gather. And yeah, that's really excellent. I love hearing that Daniel was so instrumental both in helping you get the job and then once you were there and helping you adjust, because I think that's obviously the role of a good mentor. So kudos to him. And I guess he's in a great position for it because he teaches at such a great school as well.
Yeah.
So I guess, I'm curious, what's it like for you to work there? Because it's such an awesome, to us on the outside, it just looks like this magical factory of animation goodness. And I'm curious how it feels on the inside.
Well, for me, I guess it can get kind of stressful for me. Because after I started working, I realized that a good half to 2/3 of my bookmarks were Buck people, and I had no idea. So it's really mind-blowing for me to be working amongst these people, and it still kind of is.
Sure, anyone you want to call out?
Not really. I'd say pretty much everybody.
Okay.
Jaedoo, can I ask you, that's something that I think a lot of our students are going to have to deal with at some point in their career. It kind of sounds like you're talking a little bit about imposter syndrome. You're at Buck and you're surrounded by everybody from your Vimeo feed, and you're doing work alongside them, and you've only been in the industry a year, and you were, going to be in advertising. You never even planned on doing this. And all of a sudden here you are working at Buck, and now you're on a podcast being interviewed you're some expert or something. I'm just wondering, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. So what is that like? Because, from the outside, everyone who works at Buck is a MoGraph god, and they have no fear, and they never have to do revisions because they're so good. And of course it's not like that on the inside. So I'd love to hear has it been scary? Has it been tense? Are you sleeping okay?
Say the first 3 months so I interned for 6 months before I was offered a full-time job. And the first 3 months of my internship, I'd say, were really depressing I felt like I didn't belong here. I still kind of do. And it was really hard to just do work. I just kept freezing, and it was like my brain was lagging all day, every day.
Right. And did something kind of help you push through that? Was there anything that you did or that you realized that helped you get over that?
There was, so Buck did a piece for David Blaine's TV special, and I was fortunate enough to work on that, and I was given my own little part in the piece to do, and I think that kind of gave me some confidence in taking responsibility and animating as well. So I think after that I kind of gained like a boost of confidence in working at that.
Yeah, and you're talking about the spectacle of the real piece, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes. It's an instant classic as far as I'm concerned. It's one of my favorite pieces.
It was an intense project to work on, but really fun.
So was it, do you think, helpful to you to work kind of on your own on that one little shot as opposed to being in like a group dynamic where people were kind of trading off pieces of their project? Do you think that was partially why it was a transitional moment for you?
But I guess it was kind of like a passage of right, if you'll say. Because before I had been working on very small parts of projects, and so I was kind of I had to keep checking up with people, but after getting assigned to that part, I kind of had.
It seemed like it gave you some confidence, you were saying earlier.
So I guess getting that part to do it kind of gave me a lot of confidence and responsibility, and I guess it drove me to work harder than I had before, and I guess I survived the depressing first couple of months.
My goodness, it's so funny to hear. I mean, it makes perfect sense that that's what you went through, but I think probably a lot of our students listening would think that you get that dream job and then suddenly everything's great and you're super happy and the world is just your oyster. But I think I could totally see that I probably would have felt exactly the same way as you in that situation for sure. And I guess it's cool that you sort of went from being an intern there to being a full-time employee. Is there any, difference between those two roles and, the way that you're treated there or how, the kind of work that you do?
I don't think there's honestly any difference. I guess the only difference would be that when you start working as an intern, nobody knows you and nobody knows what your skill set is and what you're good at and what you're bad at. So getting assigned to a project is the only difference, I'd say. But after I started working longer, people knew what I was good at and what kind of projects I could be put on.
So had people, because I know that your student work was like all over Motionographer and stuff, were they aware of your work when you started either interning or working there, or did they kind of not see that stuff?
Some people saw, I think. I think mostly everyone was pretty much busy with work.
Yeah, I guess, that makes sense. It's a pretty busy place. Any kind of wisdom that you've learned there that working professionally that you might be able to impart to our students who still haven't, achieved that milestone yet?
I guess the biggest thing is that you won't always be great at everything. And it's something Daniel actually told me as well. I think you need to know, or you need to figure out what your strengths are and develop your strengths a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You don't have to negate your weaknesses completely, but you can focus a lot on your strengths, I guess, to make you stand out more.
Yeah. And what do you consider to be your strengths? Still the cell game, or where are you at now?
Not actually sure, because I didn't go to school as an animator, so I'm pretty much a noob in cell. Or I consider myself a noob, and I'm not a very good drawer. I have really bad drawing skills, so I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure what my strengths are.
Well, I think that's fair. I mean, would you be able to? I mean, has your work changed since you've started working at Buck? Do you feel like it's moving in a direction?
I guess because I can't draw very well, I try to make things in more geometric and minimal looks, even if they're character drawings. And a lot of the personal work I've been doing after graduating, I would say, is like that. But I'm trying to draw more, to get better at drawing minimal and geometric shapes, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting, because I wouldn't have necessarily associated that style with your work based on the things that I've seen. Well, that's cool that you're still changing and growing, and I'm sure you're a way better illustrator than you think you are, I would imagine, from what I've seen of your work. But I also assume it's pretty daunting to have all that company around you of amazing people, so... Well, that's really cool. It's good to know that what it's like a little bit inside such a great place like Buck. So, I guess talking about new things that you're learning or whatever, I mean, any new programs, any new, anything like that? Are you taking on 3D, or, are you still pretty much thinking of a 2D kind of a thing for yourself?
So I've had the chance to start animating in Flash and TV Paint as well, because in school I'd only animated in Photoshop and After Effects, but I learned how to animate in Flash, TV Paint. I did take a class for cinema 4D in school, but I didn't do too well. So now I'm learning cinema on a couple projects on the job, so I think it's a good opportunity.
Jaedoo, let me ask you, I want to dig into After Effects a little bit too, because I would imagine that at Buck you have to be surrounded by a few people at least who are just wizards with After Effects and know it, at an incredibly high level. What are the things that you notice about a true professional After Effects artist versus, students trying to fumble with it? And, what are the things that you see at Buck that you're like, whoa, that dude knows After Effects?
I would say they know what they're doing, because when I was a student and when I see students, they're kind of like testing things out. But I'd say people at Buck know what the wrong moves are, and they're quicker to filter out the wrong choices faster. And I think that's what makes them so great, because they can get ahead of all the mistakes and different versions that they could have gone through.
That's very interesting. Now, when you say they don't, they don't have to explore as much and make the wrong moves, are you talking about on a creative level or on a technical level? Like there's some effect that they need to execute and they don't have to figure it out, or just like, oh, how should this thing move? Oh, I just know how it should move.
I mean, they do a lot of tests, but I feel like they're a lot quicker they quick on to what they're trying to make faster, because I feel like students are kind of like testing things more in a very like step-by-step way, whereas the people at Buck are already at step 10 and they're trying to get to step 11, whereas students are going from step 1 to step 1.5. So, yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Do you feel yourself sort of advancing and starting to think a few steps ahead now?
I'd like to say yes, but I don't
say yes.
I don't know if I'm getting better.
I would imagine you are.
I was going to say, that's probably a sign that you are getting better rapidly. I mean, is there anything in particular that's just completely blown you away that you've seen there? I mean, any magic that you witnessed firsthand?
I guess as a student, I didn't really have like a structured way of having like pre-comps and different comps and comps. And then after I started working at Buck, I noticed that everything was so structurally well set up, and it was so clear that I was kind of thinking why I had never thought of this. Kind of a very, very obvious but very, very clear and organized way of working. So that was one thing that I really admired and still do.
That makes sense, but I guess that's the kind of thing that experience just brings you. It's hard to like learn the program at the same time as being completely organized and set it all up the right way. I mean, you just need some perspective, I think, to get to that. So, any future career plans? I mean, I assume you're planning on staying at Buck for the time being, but...
Yeah, as of now, my plans are just to become a better designer, animator at Buck. I haven't really thought the rest of my career out yet, but hopefully I get better.
I'm pretty sure you will. And, I don't mean to pressure you into thinking into the future. I mean, you're still very young and you're at a great place, so I think you're doing awesome.
Yeah, and Jaedoo, for what it's worth, like, I'm looking at your work, and all of the students listening to this are going to have seen your website and seen your work, and it's really good actually sometimes to see someone's portfolio that's full of beautiful, beautiful work, and hear them be so self-deprecating in an interview like this, because I got to tell you, like, when I was starting out in my career, I was a lot more confident than you, and my work was like not even 5% as good. So you have every right to be confident, my friend.
I don't know about that.
Awesome.
Right on. Well, I mean, I think that pretty much covers the questions that I had for you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I've really enjoyed hearing your perspective on things, so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I think that was really great and super instructive. So here's this young guy. He's in a great school in New York studying design and advertising, and he kind of gets talked into taking an intro to motion class. And even though he's really initially very discouraged technically by the software, he somehow kind of figures something out eventually for himself, and he makes a bunch of really good work while he's in school. And he attracts the notice of an awesome mentor who works at Buck and works at his school too. And he gets kind of the internship of his dreams, and then they offer him a full-time job. So this all went down really quickly, just within a few years. And you know that transition from school to work can be tough for some people, or anybody really. I mean, it's definitely jumping from one world to another. But it was really interesting for me to hear that for Jaedoo, it was initially very depressing. Here he is kind of surrounded by some of these animation legends, and he really didn't like what he was making, and especially compared to all these amazing people around him, he felt like a fraud. And this imposter syndrome is really very real for anyone, even if you don't work at Buck. I mean, it's really easy to think that you suck and that everyone around you is better or knows something more than you don't, but really everybody feels this way plenty of times in their life, so it's definitely an illusion of some sort. At best, it's something that might help you grow, okay? I'm thrilled for Jaedoo that he did, and he worked through this initial feeling and turned it around. And I thought he said some killer things in this interview. I think one of my favorite things is that, his mentor told him that he shouldn't always try to be good at everything, and that it was a smart play to figure out your strengths and then develop those. I think this is great advice for anybody, especially if you feel like you have to take it all on, okay? So, well, thanks a lot for listening to this, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next podcast, and if you do get a chance, you should definitely try some local rhubarb. It really does taste more like stewed cranberries than prunes.